Hello, I'm Dr. Gloria Horsley.
And I'm her daughter, Dr. Heidi Horsley.
Heidi and I want to welcome you to Open to Hope Conversations, the podcast.
We believe that the greatest gift you can give yourself after a loss is hope, using this moment to connect with others who have not only survived but thrived.
So let's get started. Welcome to the Open to Hope Show. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Horsley, with my daughter and co-host,
Dr. Heidi Horsley.
Well, Heidi, we are going to be talking about a topic near and dear to your heart, and that's death of a sibling. And we're doing a little takeoff. Death of an adult sibling also are going to be highlighted on the show. So before we get started with the show, I wanted to remind you all that my new book, Open to Love, The Secrets of Senior Dating, written with my partner, Dr. Frank Powers, and fiance. Frank and I have written this book together for those of you who are feeling lonely and lost after the loss of a partner. And we met on Silver Singles, and we wanted to give you this information about our life and about the life of our clients and things that you can do to, again, find a partner in your life. And I wanted to tell you that 100% of the proceeds go to the Open to Hope Foundation with a mission of helping people find hope after loss. Well, Heidi, do you want to introduce our guest today? And we're going to be talking about sibling loss.
Like you said, Mom, we're going to be talking about the death of an adult sibling. And we are going to be talking with Earla Legault. Earla is a self-taught artist who supports adults both in her community and online. Her sister died of pancreatic cancer at the age of 50 years old. Earla is very involved in the Compassionate Friends. She is a grief support facilitator for the Compassionate Friends, and she's co-written a book called Living with Sibling Grief, Imagining a Way Forward. She also co-hosts a monthly meetup with adult siblings online. So welcome to our show, Earla.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. This is a topic both near and dear to both our hearts, isn't it, Heidi?
Absolutely. And I know how involved you are with sibling loss and how much you do with siblings and how much you support them online. Can you tell us a little bit about your story?
Sure. Yeah. I was, I guess, just over 50 when my sister phoned me one day, and she had immigrated to Spain. She had had an epiphany about a few years before and said, I have to quit my job, move to a foreign country, and learn Spanish. So within
Wow.
4 months, I was driving her, my husband and I were driving her to the airport, and she basically then immigrated to Spain. So a few years later, and we still maintain contact. We talked almost, I wouldn't say almost every day, but practically. We were the best of friends. We holidayed together. She considered Harrison our home. And then she phoned me one day and she said, I have a growth on my pancreas. And I said, well, I didn't even know really what a pancreas was. But I said, everything's going to be okay. Within 24 hours, they came to Canada, back to Canada, and moved in with us. I always say our little love nest went from 2, Michael and I, to 5 because Sarah, Leigh-Ann's daughter, came to live with us, and Steve, her fiance. So very shortly, within a couple of weeks, we found out it was terminal cancer. So we basically just lived with each other for almost 3 months, and it was the best of times. It was the worst of times, but we had our time together, and we just love being together. So that's, yeah. And she actually died in this room. This is it's my
Wow.
art room now, but it was we have a hide-a-bed in here, and she actually died in this room, and it's probably my favorite room in the house, which is, kind of different, but yeah.
What is your sister's name, Earla?
Oh, sorry, Leigh-Ann.
I'm just wondering, what do you think is unique about having a sibling die?
What is unique? I think it's because you never, ever think it's going to happen. You cannot imagine it because it's your contemporary. So you can imagine your grandparents or maybe your parents, but not somebody who's around the same age as you. And that's an assumption, but most siblings are in the same decade. So I think you can't imagine them dying. So just like you can't imagine yourself dying. So
Yeah.
I And because you're with them so much, you can't picture life without them. And that's how I was.
Heidi,
Well, and you made a good point because you said even when you and your sister weren't living under the same roof, you were still really close. And I
Oh.
think there's an assumption out there that siblings that are living under the same roof are closer or have a or miss them more. And I wasn't living with my brother, and I was very close to him.
Yeah. In The Empty Room, Elizabeth really, I believe it's where I learned that Freud had a different way of looking at things. It was like it's all about sibling rivalry. And yes, there is that. But I think as adults, I know with my sister and I, we fought like cat and dog when we were younger. But as older, we just decided we are going to be friends. Like that was the early 20s, and that was it. We never fought again. So for over 30 years, we're each other's best friend.
I have had two siblings die, my
Mhm.
brother and my sister. And one of the, but older, I'm 80 and they were probably in their late 70s or whatever. But I just want to say what I miss is connecting with the stories and finding out things from them, and also finding out you lose all their friends with them. You lose, all that history of being able to talk to them.
Mhm.
So I have one sister left, and she's the only one that we were talking about my mom and dad the other day. We were playing golf together, and I won't have anybody to talk if she passes away before I do. I'm the youngest. I won't have anybody to talk to about mom and
Your
dad.
childhood, right?
Mhm.
Your history, like you said, your childhood stories
Yeah.
that nobody else knows.
Yeah.
Which, and you're also making a good point in that you and your sister had some rocky times, but worked them out as you got older. And I was similar with my sisters. We would fight when we were teenagers, and we're best friends now. So it's really difficult though when you lose a sibling and you have unfinished business. There was an ambivalent relationship. I'm sure you see that because I know you work with a lot of siblings and do a lot of peer support with compassionate friends in your groups.
Yeah, that's right. There's all different kinds of relationships. But I just feel like I was one of the lucky ones. And my co-writer, the lady who wrote the book with me, she had a really good relationship with her sister too. Our sisters both led very parallel lives. Both of them immigrated to a different country, but we still kept very in contact and, traveling together. Yeah, so it was.
And what's helped you along the way to find hope after your sister's death?
Creativity, doing art. Like, after my sister died, I just didn't know what to do. And I think within a couple of days, I just grabbed a pen and started writing. And I'm a real doodler, so I would doodle too. And I made things called zines, which are little handmade books, just little stories, very short. But that really helped me because I think the reason I like to make zines is it's a short story, but there's always resolution at the end because you have to find an ending to it. So I did a lot of that, a lot of writing, and and then when I went to grief group, I couldn't talk for the first 8 sessions. Like all I could do was cry. But towards the end, I brought a little zine that I wrote and I read it to them.
Oh, let me see your zine.
Okay.
Oh, I love this. I survived. Is that what it says?
Yes, it does. Yeah. Yeah.
Open
Yeah.
it. Let me see some writing in it.
Okay. So yeah. So very simple. Very simple.
Fun. Anybody can do that. I miss her. I really.
Well, yeah. Yes. And
You
that's
can
the
put them in
beauty of
little
it.
books.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Okay.
learned you can
Good
use
idea.
a lot of Kleenex when you're busy surviving. And if you have a goal, may peace prevail on earth that can help you survive too. And I wrote that August 13th, so 2014. So that was like 8 months after Leigh-Ann died.
What do you do with your zines? I love it.
Oh,
Do you make up that word, or is that a word for little book?
no, it's a zine is short for fanzine. In the 40s and 50s, people made things like this to either share about, like say a book that they liked, or a lot of social justice. People use zines, and there's it's like an underground community of zine makers, but it's something that I fell into and just went with. And so that was the thing that So when I brought it to hospice and they just glommed onto it. And then through that, I was still I would say wrecked. And I went to a second set of 8 sessions. And then I show people how to make zines. And then I was asked to do it with the children's group. So it's a gentle way to talk about how you feel. And, you don't have to be an artist. You don't have to, you can do it like that. So, and then I went on and I made this one. This is my Leigh-Ann and I.
Huh?
I just started making them and they just made me feel better. I made one from a dream I had about Leigh-Ann. She came to me and she asked me how my appointments were going. Now, my sister was a receptionist. I don't use the word appointments, but she did. So I started writing down all the things that I was doing for myself, like going to our hot pools or having a friend over for knitting. And then I've since made a zine and it's available online. But it just made me, I guess I got out how I was feeling. And Heidi, that's a long answer to your question.
Well, Earla, okay, so for anybody out there that wants to make a zine, do they cut their own paper or can you buy a zine book that's empty?
Yeah, well, you can make your own. This is like, for example, this is what you call a 1-page zine. So it's like that.
That's a great idea because otherwise it just becomes a journal.
Yeah,
I mean, I
exactly.
love to be not just buying a book, you create this whole
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. But in my early days, I couldn't even hardly fold. So I used to make zines just in my sketchbook and
Okay.
tell
I
the
love
story.
this.
But again, with 8 panels. So
Oh, with it, yeah.
yeah, so just to
Oh,
kind of,
Joe's
that's
scene.
how I did it. Yeah.
I
So
love this, Earla, and I love that you're saying, look, if you go to a grief group, and there's a lot online with the Compassionate Friends, if you go to a grief group, you don't necessarily have to talk. I think people are afraid to go because maybe they're not ready to talk. But like
exactly.
you're saying, Earla, you don't have to talk.
No, no. And yeah, you don't like a lot of, for me, peer support was everything when I finally figured out what it was. Going to a psychologist is a really good, like having a counselor. I totally advocate having a counselor. But yeah, you don't have to talk. You can draw, you can write. And
I love this.
that's how I got involved with TCF because, Jason had online. He had created these groups online.
Jason Windruff Ronicky, for those of you that don't know, does a lot online.
I knew about the meetings, but I didn't go. And then all of a sudden I just thought I'm going to put on my big girl underwear and I went. And I really liked it because, it's just a room full of siblings on Zoom. And after about a month, I said to Jason, do you guys ever do art? Because I'm kind of a fidgety person. And he said, well, no, do you want to do art? So then I did art with people, with siblings every week for 10 months during COVID, like at the height of COVID.
And what would you do? Would you walk in and have a theme, or how would you start these meetings
Yeah,
that were?
how I kind of did it was I wanted to show people all different kinds of art and also because as an adult, a lot of people are kind of shut down about art. They were told in grade 4 that they're no good, so they never do it again. So I felt like I wanted to share what I was doing. And I do all sorts of things like watercolor and then zines. Yeah, doing things with crayons. I would show them different things that I did to make myself feel better when I was when I just like making little things like this, like just little scenes. And I love quotes, so I would share it with them. So sometimes it was about I taught them how to make zines. And it was so every week I did something different. It was lovely.
So Earla, it sounds like for me, I feel like I don't know how to draw. It sounds like I could still go to this group, even if you're not an artist, you could go and express yourself, it sounds like, artistically.
Sure. Well, I've done, there's a thing called Graphic Medicine International Collective, and how I came basically tying grief and comics and drawing together was knowing about them, that it's in the medical community and they believe that tying medicine and comics and art is a good way to get a message out, is it's visual storytelling. So I found out about them. And so fast forward a few years, during COVID, they had sessions that you could once a week to express yourself through art. So then they asked me to do one, and that was a real privilege. And I did it mostly about hands, because I think if you're saying you're not a drawer, you can do things like this. So what I did was I traced both my hands, and then I started thinking about how Leigh-Ann and I were similar, but this is sort of our similar, but yet we were different. And, you know, I think hands are a great way to start. And, you know, even if you're really nervous when you're in a group, you can think about, you know, like, you know, how there's that 5 ways to relax, you know, like see 1 thing, smell 2 things, feel 3 things, that kind of thing. So, yeah, I just,
I love the hands, Mom, don't you?
I do. I really like it. You know, this just reminds me of the Jewish tradition, studying the Kabbalah. The Kabbalah, the one thing they say is express your godly nature. God creates.
yeah,
I love
And
that.
and
Yeah.
and that's what you do, and that's what you teach people to do. I am just really love it. I
Well,
really love what you do.
sometimes there are no words.
Yep.
I mean, when someone would say, "How are you doing?" or "What's it like to have a brother die?" it was so overwhelming to even give that voice. So, I mean, I love the idea of the hands showing how you're similar, how you're different. The
Yes.
little book sheet you're doing, all these ways of expressing yourself that doesn't mean talking about it.
That's
Yeah.
right.
It goes beyond that.
You know, that great book that Colin wrote, Finding Your Words, Colin Campbell.
Mhm.
I just got so much out of it. And he really showed me that we are all unique in how we process our grief. I want to tell you the story that 9 days after my sister died, I went to hospice for grief counseling, and I learned the words continuing bonds. I didn't know about them. Like it was, and I thought, I'm over 50. How come I haven't learned about it? So I use books to write to my sister too. And that has been a lifesaver too. And,
So
somebody
you'll
else,
write her letters?
yes, I write her letters,
I
or
love
I
it.
just, you know, and again, I'm doodling because I want to share my drawings with her. So, yeah, that has been just lovely. Yeah. So just little things like this. We took, Leigh-Ann's ashes back to Spain. And so we let them go, in the water, and my niece and I, we took our dresses off and swam in her ashes. So,
Wow.
yeah, that was pretty surreal, but it was wonderful. And I think also I like to tell people about my story because, you know, like Monica says, my co-writer and grief buddy, we don't do things cookie cutter. Cookie cutter doesn't really work anymore. We want to do things unique, bring our personality into it. And I mean, taking our dresses off and swimming in that was something we did not think about beforehand, but we did it. And it just shows people that you can do unique things. You can really do your own kind of grieving, your own kind of processing, your own kind of remembering. Yeah.
I love it. Thank you so much for being on this show
Oh,
today.
I'm
You
happy to be
really,
here.
Earla, you really have some great ideas, and I love your spirit.
Yeah. Thank you. And thanks for inviting a Canadian.
Of course,
There's not
Earla.
many of us. Yeah. I went on to do a connecting with creativity through hospice, and I found out it was the only one in Canada that we were doing things like that. Every Saturday we got together and did an activity and art, and that's where I showed them how to make zines. And yeah, it's just another way to do our grief work, I guess. Yeah.
Love it.
Well, Earla, thank you so much for everything that you're doing. And thank you so much for building awareness about all the creative ways that we can express ourselves and that we can find hope again. I appreciate everything that you're doing with the Compassionate Friends. And I also appreciate the work you're doing to build awareness for adult sibling loss. It's not talked about enough.
You're
So
right.
thank you.
Yeah. Thanks very much for having me. Take care.
Now, Earla,
You
tell
too.
us where people can get your book, Living with Sibling Grief, Imagining a Way Forward.
It's going to be on Amazon as a print on demand, and we'll also have it on Kindle.
And thanks everybody for joining us on this show again. And Heidi and I and the Open to Hope family want to remind you always that if you've lost hope, please lean on ours until you find your own, and God bless.
I'm Dr. Heidi Horsley. You have been listening to Open to Hope, the podcast. You can follow Open to Hope on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. To learn more, visit us at opentohope.com and go to Apple Podcasts to subscribe.
I'm Dr. Gloria Horsley. Join us again next week for another Open to Hope conversation, where we invite you to lean on our hope until you find your own.